Welcome back to the channel. Of course, this is the review you've probably been long waiting for if you've been following me for some time, and certainly the one that I've been wanting to give you for quite some time. And that, of course, is Deadpool and Wolverine, directed by Shawn Levy, starring Ryan Reynolds, Hugh Jackman, Emma Corrin, and Matthew Macfadyen. And this, of course, is Deadpool's debut into the Marvel Cinematic Universe since the Disney-Fox merger back in 2019. Everybody wanted this movie, and now it is here. It finally happened, and I'll try to keep the plot of this movie as vague as possible because y'all gotta go see this. You know, this is a Marvel movie yet again, the only Marvel movie coming out this year, which I'm quite happy about because they really need some course correction, and I feel like they kind of all placed their eggs in one basket on this one because the marketing for this film is quite frankly some of the best I've ever seen. It is so funny, so consistent, so endlessly witty that I was like, this movie has to be a hit, right? Like, this has to be one of the best films in the MCU. And what I will tell you is I had a lot of fun with this one. Is it one of the best movies of the year? I wouldn't quite say so, like I originally thought it was going to be, but my goodness, this is what everybody has been waiting for. Well, maybe not everybody, but I certainly am glad with the product that we got here. And of course, the big question on everybody's mind who hasn't seen the movie, how well do they integrate Deadpool into the MCU? And I'd say almost seamlessly. Like, right from the beginning, you know exactly what this movie is going to do and how they're going to do it. And it is just glorious. It still has that same dark, sadistic edge that those first two films have, the irreverent nature of it, the crude humor, the absolute non-stop violence. It's all there and really delivers on what I think a lot of Deadpool fans wanted for them putting him into the MCU for the very first time. And this is the first film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe to have an R rating, which is a huge shakeup. And I'm really glad that Kevin Feige just let them absolutely go balls to the wall with this. They make fun of how bad the MCU's been doing as of late. They make fun of everything under the sun imaginable. And the humor is in line with what was presented in those first two films. It's still got that edge. They still don't give a fuck who they go after or who they offend. And I really, really loved that that is retained in this third entry. Now, the other big factor that people are probably wondering about is how is the integration of Hugh Jackman as Wolverine coming back after what was supposed to be his final film with Logan that really quite literally put the nail in the coffin for that character. But I will say, and even from the beginning of this film, you know, they're going to do Logan justice. And I think what is so great about this movie is Hugh Jackman's performance as Wolverine. I think this is probably his best turn after Logan, which is to say he's the best part of this entire movie, but I don't think that should be any surprise because Hugh Jackman is absolutely incredible, as is Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool, aka Wade Wilson, aka the Merc with the Mouth. This is the role he was born to play, and I think these two play off of each other so brilliantly. The chemistry is felt throughout this entire film. You can tell they're absolute best friends, even though they're the worst of enemies in here. And of course, there's always that unresolved homoerotic tension bubbling right underneath the surface. And yeah, it's just great seeing these guys get on screen together for the first time. They have a lot of great moments, a lot of great laughs to be had. I mean, this movie is hysterical, just as the first two films are. The first one, I think, is a comedy comic book classic at this point. I really, really love that first Deadpool. And the second one I really enjoy as well. This one falls right under those, I think, but I think it's really the humor that bolsters it to the other level. It still feels special, like those first two movies did, in my opinion. And another thing about this film that you're going to be hearing a lot about, and which I won't spoil in this video, of course, are the endless cameos that pop up throughout the story and what they integrate into this film. Yet again, Marvel can do anything at this point, let's put it that way, and I think it features some of the best surprises you'll ever see in the MCU, and one that made me gasp out loud like, what? In front of the whole theater, man. It was just unbelievable what they pull off, and I think going to the theater, seeing movies like this for that type of surprise, it's not going to be for everybody, but I was certainly into what they were delivering in a fan service type of way. Now, where some of my criticisms come in with the movie is the fan service, ironically enough, because I compare this to Spider-Man No Way Home, which was such a seamless integration of fan service, but also adding, more depth to these movies that have already been established. All these characters are more fleshed out in a meaningful way, and I really, really, really love that film because of this. Here the cameos feel a bit more frivolous, and not necessarily in a bad way. It's not like Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, where it feels a bit empty. I think this one is somewhere in between the two of those, because I really appreciate what they're doing with some of these characters that, let's say, they bring back. I don't think that's too much of a spoiler, but I do think that at times it just feels like, okay, we are doing this because we want to appease the fans. And it works, and in some regards it doesn't play as tightly into the narrative as I would have liked. And this narrative isn't the cleanest of narratives, we'll say, not because of the violence, of course, or the, very crass humor, but just from a structural standpoint, I don't think it entirely works. I think there's a lot of amazing moments, especially with Hugh Jackman. And I also got to give props to Matthew Macfadyen here, who plays one of these agents in the TVA. He absolutely chews up the scenery whenever he's on screen, because he knows exactly what movie he's in, and he is just as self-aware as this film is. And I absolutely love how he rides that fine line, the way he plays off of Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool. It's really, really great work in here. I think a great comedic turn from Macfadyen, especially coming off of Succession. So really glad to see him here. Emma Corrin as the villain in this film, which I will not name, is quite good, but they don't really get a whole lot to do. It's just another, standard Marvel villain that I don't really think adds much to the overall review of the rogues in the MCU. Just one that is kind of bland and doesn't quite stand out. But she does this really cool thing with her fingers where she kind of reaches inside people's heads, and it's an amazing, amazing visual effect. And I really love what they did from a visual standpoint with their character. But at the same time, with all this multiverse stuff, all the amazing things you can do with it, the fact that we have Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds in the same movie together after all these years apart off of screen since, X-Men Origins Wolverine, which is one of the worst pieces of shit I've ever seen. And it's really great to see them in this capacity together. I still feel like the multiverse is getting to the point where it's starting to cheapen a few things. Now, I will say I was worried at one point that this movie was going to cheapen the impact of Logan, and I don't think it does. That was my biggest concern going into this film, and I'm glad to say I don't think it quite does that. But in some ways, this film feels very convenient, and I think that goes to some of the story elements with the multiverse, but also in regards to just, we're going to be self-aware about spouting off all this exposition, and then we're still going to do it. It doesn't necessarily make it much better. Yet again, I'm very self-aware about a lot of things I say and do in my life, and maybe it's different from a day-to-day basis when you're going about your day, but from a narrative standpoint, I don't really think it makes a whole lot of sense. Yet again, it's just an excuse for a little bit of a lazy writing, and I'm not necessarily huge on that, but I really do like what they do with the character of Wade Wilson and the character of this variant of Logan/Wolverine, and I really just had such a damn good time. And I think just the moments of surprise that these movies give you, it's just such an amazing high to experience in theaters, and I just don't think that many movies ever get to those types of incredible moments. Like, moments why we go to the movies. I'm not saying why we go to the cinema, why we go to the movies. And this is kind of in line with what Martin Scorsese said about Marvel films. And I kind of agree with him in that way. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It does give you a thrill. It is like being on a thrill ride. And that's what I love watching these films. Just these amazing surprises that they're able to give to the fans of these comics is really unlike anything else. Whether it's in service of a great story, not always entirely the case. I think this is somewhere in the middle. But just because I had so much fun with this film, I'm going to give Deadpool and Wolverine a 7.5 out of 10. A very light one at that, but really, I mean, this was such a blast to see with the crowd, with my friends. It was just a great trip to the movie theater, and I hope you guys feel the same way. Now, I do want to say I am thinking of doing a spoiler review for this one in particular, because there's so much to talk about, especially all the implications this opens for the MCU going forward with the R rating, with the characters, what have you. And of course, I also want to talk about that Robert Downey Jr. casting as Doctor Doom in the next Avengers. So if you want to see a spoiler review of the movie and me discussing that topic, I'm going to put a poll down in my community page because I really don't want to do it unless there's enough interest in it. But I really would like to talk about what happens in this movie and the future of the MCU. So anyway, if you did enjoy this review though, please smash the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new here and stumbling onto this page for the first time. Would really appreciate the support. And of course, I'll be bringing you more reviews sooner than later. When that will be, I don't know. Times are pretty busy right now, but I assure that there is more coming down the pipeline very soon. So until that date, I'll ask you guys to take it easy, and I will talk to you soon.
When you call my